With the success of the original Animal Crossing, a sequel called Animal Crossing Wild World was released for the Nintendo DS in late 2005 in the US, Japan, and Australia, and in 2006 in Europe. I distinctly remember first hearing about this game from an ad on the back of the Nintendogs instruction manual, and I was extremely hyped for another entry and played it a ton when it originally released. Another sequel, Animal Crossing City Folk, was released worldwide for the Wii in 2008, but I didn't enjoy it as much because of its similarities to Wild World. As a result, I'll be taking a look at both games in this review. After all these years, how do I feel about Wild World and City Folk now? Wild World and City Folk's basic premise and gameplay are very similar to the original. You move to a new town, buy a house, and work a part-time job before being free to experience each game at your own pace. The main goal of paying off each house debt returns, along with tasks like completing the museum, upgrading Tom Nook's store, and achieving a perfect town. Despite their similarities to the original, there are quite a few new features or changes in Wild World and City Folk. Both games have a continuously scrolling camera instead of a grid-based layout. There are also more tools now, including a watering can to revive wilting flowers, and a slingshot to shoot down balloons and other flying objects. You can also pick up and move flowers now, making it much easier to decorate your town. Saving works differently in these games because you no longer have a gyroid assistant. Instead, you can save by resting in your attic, or you can also save anywhere. Certain features that debuted in Dobutsu no More E+ also appear in Wild World and City Folk, such as buying medicine and eavesdropping on other villagers' conversations. A few things are missing from the original though, such as being able to directly ask for chores from villagers, visiting a nearby island, and participating in monthly raffles. Many facilities have been added to Wild World and City Folk too, including an observatory and cafe in the museum, a town gate which replaces the train station and police station, and a town hall which acts as a post office and civic center. Some returning places have new features too, such as a point system for shopping at Tom Nook's store and having bladders identify fossils without mailing them to another museum. Many of the traveling visitors from the first game return, along with a variety of new additions as well. Another noteworthy change in both games is the ability to buy hats and other accessories for your character now, and even change your hairstyle and hair color at a salon. Outside of the gameplay, both games also control very similarly. In addition to the DS's face buttons and D-pad, Wild World can be controlled entirely using the touchscreen, while the top screen shows the sky. City Folk can either be controlled by using the Wii Remote's pointer to emulate the touchscreen features, or by using a Wii Remote and nunchuck for a more traditional setup. To make up for the lack of a second screen, you can look up at the sky by pressing up on the D-pad. The D-pad can also be used to cycle through tools, but overall the controls are a bit more restrictive in City Folk, since some things like inventory management and typing can only be done with the pointer controls. Despite the similarities between the core gameplay of Wild World and City Folk, there are quite a few differences as well. One example is how they start slightly differently, with Rover being absent in Wild World's opening, and having to manually walk to the town hall in City Folk, since you start at the bus stop. Another immediately noticeable difference is how each game looks and sounds. The graphics and music are obviously much better in City Folk, but Wild World's frame rate is also much lower, so the game feels very choppy by comparison. City Folk adds some new content too, mainly a new city area that's accessible through a bus stop in front of the town gate. Several of the visiting characters from both the original and Wild World can be accessed at almost any time in the city, such as the comedian Dr. Shrunk and the fortune teller Katrina. There's also a headquarters for the Happy Room Academy, run by an otter named Lyle who sells insurance in Wild World, an auction house for selling items to other players, and a shoe-shining skunk named Kix, who can change her shoe color. Outside of the city, there are a few more noteworthy changes in City Folk. The layout of each town is a bit different because Wild World's towns aren't divided into upper and lower levels. At the town hall, you can donate to a town fund, but it works a bit differently in each game. Doing so in City Folk unlocks things like a fountain and a lighthouse for your town, but doing so in Wild World unlocks special accessories. More tools are available in City Folk, including a special set of silver variations of each tool. City Folk also introduces the ability to make pro designs at the Able Sisters store, allowing you to design the front, back, and each sleeve of a shirt individually. The hair salon Shampoodle is in the city by default, but it has to be unlocked by fully upgrading Nook's store in Wild World. There's even an extensive trading quest for the Golden Axe that's only in Wild World, but the Golden Axe is still available in City Folk by throwing your axe into an unlockable fountain. Another notable change is each game's approach to special events and festivals. Wild World has generic events like the decorating contest Bright Nights instead of traditional holidays, while City Folk brings back many of the real-world holidays from the original, along with new ones like Festival and Bunny Day. There are a few negative changes from Wild World though. If you accidentally talk to a villager, you no longer have the option to back out of a conversation, and they'll repeat themselves if you talk to them multiple times in a row. Also, if you walk through certain areas of your town too often, the grass will begin to wear and eventually turn to dirt. One of the major features of both of these games is their multiplayer. Like in the original, up to 4 people can live in one town, but only one person can play at a time. In City Folk, everyone lives in separate houses like in the original, but in Wild World, all 4 players share a house, so there are additional rooms and expansions to unlock, along with much higher debt payments. In Wild World, it's possible to visit another player's town via local wireless, and both games had online multiplayer, but the Nintendo Wi-Fi connection service for the DS and Wii was shut down in 2014. Certain special travelers only appear when visiting other towns, and in Wild World, Nook's Final Store upgrade still requires another player to visit and buy an item in the DS version. Thankfully, City Folk and the Wii U Virtual Console version of Wild World removed this requirement for unlocking Nook's final upgrade. City Folk even had voice chat through an accessory called the Wii Speak that was bundled with some copies of the game. In both games, the online was a major component, so it's a shame that it's no longer available anymore. Before I wrap up this review, I wanted to quickly mention the 2006 anime film based on Wild World. The story follows a girl named Ai who moves to a new town and goes through many of the activities from the games. The film does a good job of capturing the relaxing and cute nature of Animal Crossing, with some surprisingly emotional moments too. I doubt it would be very interesting for anyone who doesn't already like Animal Crossing, but as a fan, I enjoyed it a lot. It's really charming and pretty faithful to the source material, but I don't know how appealing it would be to newcomers. It was also only released in Japan, so it's pretty hard to watch or even find nowadays. If you do find a way to watch it and are a fan of the series, I would still highly recommend it. Overall, I still like Animal Crossing Wild World and City Folk, and enjoyed revisiting them for this review. If I had to choose one over the other, I'd actually go with City Folk now. At the time, Wild World was a solid portable entry, but I think it's aged a bit poorly by comparison. After playing both games back to back for this review, City Folk just felt like an upgraded version of Wild World in almost every way. I will say that as a sequel, City Folk definitely feels like an incredibly small step forward when compared to the amount of improvements made in Wild World compared to the original, which is why I tend to think of City Folk as a sort of remake of Wild World with additional content. In any case, thank you for watching, and next time I'll be going over my current favorite game in the series, Animal Crossing New Leaf.